nominated a convicted felon.
Donald Trump is a convicted felon.
A convicted felon, convicted felon, a convicted felon, a convicted felon.
Convicted felon, convicted felon.
A convicted felon.
A convicted felon.
Convicted as a felon.
He is now a convicted felon.
Convicted felon.
The convicted felon.
You know, this woman is tripping, right? Jen Psaki. All right. I'm going to let you listen to this because she's out of control crazy. And I think this is what their ultimate wish actually is. They wish what I'm about to hear right now. This is what they actually want. I'm not telling you because I'm going to let her say it. Watch this. Whew, this is crazy.
Far be it from me to put you in Bill Barr's shoes or anyone else's, but why? Why? We know why Senator Tim Scott is embarrassing himself on TV every day. He wants to be vice president. We know. But to your point about Mitch McConnell or Bill Barr or any of these people, why? Is it just to be close to power? They believe Donald Trump's going to get reelected. What is it?
I think there's two categories. I mean, there's obviously the Tim Scott category, as you said. That's embarrassing to watch, cringy. I've watched it many times. I think many of them want to be close to power. They also assume or have this thought in their mind that maybe Donald Trump will go away. Maybe he'll go to jail. Maybe he will die, not to be too morbid, but maybe, I mean, he's not a young man. Who knows what's in their minds? They think
maybe you will what? That wasn't a slip of the tongue right here.
Morbid, but maybe, I mean, Trump will go away. Maybe he'll go to jail. Maybe he will die.
That's what I mean. That's what they want right here. You remember Jeffrey Epstein's situation? Yeah, that's crazy. It seems to me that that's the goal. Trump goes to prison and then all of a sudden, right? But we know that he's allowed Secret Services in the prison. So that's one good thing. But what they want is for Trump to be gone. They just can't stand him. They wish he was dead. He's gonna die. We all know that. I'm gonna die. But God has the clock, not you.
Not to be too morbid, but maybe, I mean, Trump will go away. Maybe he'll go to jail. Maybe he will die, not to be too morbid, but maybe, I mean, he's not a young man. Who knows what's in their minds? They think maybe I will be behind the Oval Office. Maybe I will be in the Oval Office. The other category is the one you mentioned, of course, of all of these people. Bill Barr also, that guy's not going to be in government again. To me, those are people who are fearful of the mob coming out against them, fearful of the pro-Trump mob, the MAGA mob. Threats is a real thing, as you all have discussed frequently on Morning Joe, but they're fearful of that group. They're fearful of people who are his supporters. Maybe there's some of them are in the business community, perhaps, but more the mob out there. I understand that, but you know what? There are people who are... Sarah Matthews was a deputy press secretary in the White House. She has said, I don't agree with Joe Biden, but I feel that the threat is existential, and so I'm going to support him.
You know, she just exposed the plan of the ultimate plan of the Democrats right there in that video. This wasn't a mistake. This is why her video has gone viral. You know, friends, I'm not a prophet. I don't claim to be a prophet. Okay, far from it. But I did say the word convicted felon, right, is going to be used and abused. Let me pull up that clip for you so you can see what I mean. And it's true, though, because the new talking point now is like a convicted felon. Are you going to vote for a convicted felon? Convicted felon? Guess what? The media is going to keep repeating this. You're going to hear it. It's a buzzword. It's going to become one of those points, similar to what happened in election interference or Russiagate. You know, you're going to see that. They play with words, all right? They're pretty good at branding things. And over time, you will see the media brainwashing people. We can't vote for a convicted felon. He's a convicted felon. We can vote for him. That was the goal. Yeah, exactly. And I said this, I predicted this because I was reading some Twitter. It was not a prediction, to be honest with you. I was reading a few Twitters and I was like, oh yeah, that's going to be the new buzzwords. And I noticed a lot of people from the left were already using it online. And I'm like, yep, you're going to hear it all over the media. And long behold, listen to this. You can't make this up. And this is how you know This was all intended to take place at the time in which it did. By the way, the YouTube channel that I'm reacting to right now, I'm not gonna listen to his entire thing, but Barry Cunningham, oh, he's good. Oh, he's really good. All right, let's take a listen. Watch this because it's so spot on.
Donald John Trump. Don't choke. Is a convicted felon.
It's interesting. She said his name. She's been calling him you know who, but now she said his name just so she could say he's a convicted felon. She couldn't even just get it out, but nevertheless.
Is a convicted felon.
Convicted felon.
Convicted felon.
Why should Americans vote for a convicted felon?
Convicted felon.
He is a convicted felon.
Convicted felon.
I mean, people really have to say to themselves, am I going to vote for a convicted felon?
I get it. They're angry. Okay. You have nominated a convicted felon.
Donald Trump is a convicted felon.
A convicted felon. Convicted felon. A convicted felon. A convicted felon.
Convicted felon. Convicted felon.
A convicted felon.
A convicted felon.
Convicted as a felon.
He is now a convicted felon.
Convicted felon.
A convicted felon.
Convicted felon.
A convicted felon. Convicted felon.
A convicted felon.
Convicted felon.
Is that a picture that they're going to be proud to show their grandkids someday? That they're standing behind a convicted felon?
Donald Trump is now a convicted felon. Are you comfortable voting for him in November?
Do we want to have a president that is a convicted felon?
He has now, in New York, been adjudicated a sexual abuser. He has been adjudicated a business fraudster. He is now a convicted felon. And someone with that kind of record is patently unfit for office.
Donald Trump refers to himself as a political prisoner and blames you directly. What's your response to that, sir?
So we might as well get used to the term convicted felon. We're gonna keep hearing it, just like insurrection, just like reproductive rights, just like all the other terminology. I gotta give the left a clap. They are good at naming and blaming and using words to have their way. I was on Sky News this morning, and I think this man is a former Trump advisor, if I'm not mistaken. And Rita Panahi had him there to explain the case. And I want you to notice what he did, because remember, the left is playing with the word convicted felon, and it's going to keep happening. But even the way, like I've said, they play on with words like hush money case kind of thing. Like, what is that, right? We still don't even know what that terminology actually represents. And he's going to address exactly what is going on here, and it's actually well done. Let's watch this together.
3% of Americans think this was a fair trial. How can that be?
Well, because they listen to propaganda whores like CNN and the Washington Post. I mean, that's why. I mean, even your chyron and your introduction is a talking point for the mainstream lying legacy media. Hush money trial. It's not a hush money trial. It's a non-disclosure agreement. I signed a non-disclosure agreement with Mr. Trump in 2015 when I came on board to be his national security advisor for the debates. An NDA is a completely standard business practice in Australia, in the UK, in America, and this is it's a fabricated crime. The statute of limitations expired 5 years ago for what they charged him with, which is what? A misstatement on a financial internal document where he said this is legal fees. Well, it was because he was paying his lawyer. And then they come up with this Rube Goldberg lunatic thing that, well, the hush money so-called payment was made to protect the president's reputation during an election. Therefore, it should have been paid for from the campaign fund. But here's where it gets bizarre. When was that payment to the president's lawyer made? This is an important point. January after the election. How can you undermine an election 3 months after the election occurred, unless the check went into, H.G. Wells's time machine and went back in time? The whole thing is a fabrication. Oh, and your other point is completely well taken. It's a federal election. So what is a state court in New York doing, trying to prosecute a federal election allegation? The Federal Election Commission deemed there to be no crime. Alvin Bragg's predecessor in New York, Cy Vance Jr., said, yeah, sorry, no crime here. Oh, but President Trump becomes the nominee for the Republicans. He's beating Joe Biden in 6 of the 6 battleground states. Now we're going to charge him with a trumped-up felony. Everybody sees through this who's awake, has their eyes open, and has a pulse.
That right there was epic indeed. That right there was epic indeed. Listen, you have a pulse. Listen, you have a little bit of common sense left in you. How could you not see this is nothing but a sham? Okay, so, I mean, it's a joke. It's a joke. And I love how Barry Cunningham closed this thing because he's good, man. I'm going to make sure, I'm going to put a link in the description below so you can watch his YouTube channel because, yeah, I enjoy listening to this guy. I'm sure some of you already subscribe to him, so anyway.
Said many times, they're after us. He's just standing in their way. If they are successful in getting Trump out of the picture, what chance do we have as ordinary Americans? Do you need more proof of their evil plans? Check this out.
I'm still shocked and amazed that his supporters would follow him with the lies and distortions that he continues to give to the American people. He says it's rigged. He says if they can do this to me, they can do it to you, bringing in others to cover the lies that he's telling. I am going to spend some time with the criminal justice system, with the justice system, asking them, tell us what's going on with the domestic terrorists. Are they preparing a civil war against us? Should we?
Domestic terrorists, she's referring to Trump supporters. Over half of the country, over 80 million people you're talking about are domestic terrorists. If they still love Trump, even though you're calling him a convicted felon. That is crazy, yo.
We be concerned about our safety? What is he doing with this divisive language? It is dangerous, and we're going to have to make sure that we understand that we're not at risk with this man talking in the way that he's doing.
What domestic terrorists is she referring to? You know any? I certainly don't. But as you see, they feel completely comfortable calling us deranged and terrorists. We've gone beyond deplorable. Now we're deranged terrorists. And they're doing it in the open on national television. And the host just sits by, nods and smiles. Both Raskin and Maxine said that on national news shows. And yet the hosts just sit there, completely complicit. We are in huge trouble, and I hope you see that. These aren't just people on the street with crazy rantings. These are sitting elected members of the United States government, and they're calling half the country terrorist and deranged. Are you scared? Well, you should be, because Maxine Waters is a complete personification of hypocrisy. Do you remember this?
Let's say the cause. Let's make sure we show up wherever we have to show up. And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out or you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere.
Okay, I get it. We're not welcome anywhere.
That's just crazy that she was able to say that and just walk away with that. That's okay for her to say. But we are the domestic terrorists. Isn't that a mess?
But for now, the New York jurors have already presented their fellow citizens with a choice. Do we want to be represented, to be led for the first time in history by a convicted felon?
Yes. My answer is yes. You've made him one, and we accept it as so, and we're still going to vote for him.
The answer will come in November.
You don't have to wait until November for the answer. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm still standing with Trump. I'm going to vote for a convicted felon. Hell yes. I want a convicted felon representing me. Not any convicted felon. I want Trump. If you feel the same way, I want you to say so in the comments. I want you to tell me that you're okay with a convicted felon named Donald Trump representing you in the Oval Office as President of the United States. And why am I asking you to do that? Because you never know. Somebody may be reading the comments and they need your words of encouragement. If you stand for
Yeah, I think we need a convicted felon in the White House. It's about time we get one. We haven't had one yet. We had a black president. We had other presidents in the White House. We haven't had a woman president. We had a lot of neocons. We had some sexual predators. We have all different types, right? Let's make room for a convicted felon in the White House, somebody. Anyway, friends, I really appreciate this. I think this was great. I'm going to put a link in the description below. If you don't know his channel, go check him out. He's great, man. He's done his work. And I really appreciate what's being said. You remember the sheriff from California? What did he say? He said, I think it's time we get a kind of a convicted felon in the White House.
And I think it's time that instead of letting them out of jail and giving them alcohol and drugs and everything else, I think it's time we put a felon in the White House. Trump 2024, baby. Let's save this country and make America great again.
And I tell you what, I think it's about time. We're at a point now we don't even care anymore. We're just gonna vote for him regardless. Pray for him. God's will be done. It's like the more the left is doing to get us to not love Donald Trump, is the more we love him. Link in the description below. Like and subscribe to the page. Click the bell icon for more. Share your thought and perspective with me. Let's have the conversation below. Until next time, have a good one. Bye.